Emma was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 7 years old.
She never did properly approach the problem of diabetic care. She refused to wear the diabetic pump, which is a particularly stupid thing to do.
She has very low blood sugars and becomes unconscious. I have PTSD from this. I'm always on very, very high alert. If I tell her to eat something so her sugar won't be low, she'll tell me to f off. My biggest fear, even more than the drugs, is her diabetes. It's going to kill her.
When I was 7 years old, my mom had an affair and she ended up leaving us. My dad was a great dad, but he wasn't available emotionally. When I was 15 years old, I threw a party at my dad's house. I had friends over. It went nuts. My dad told me that I needed to go live with my mother. It was hell. She was an alcoholic.
I was still drinking. I wasn't mentally healthy. I was not a good person for her to move in with.
She felt guilty and she'd give me alcohol when she drank. It was a very difficult time. During that time, I decided boys were more important than school. I ended up dropping out when I was 18 years old. A few years later, I met a guy named Nettie. We got engaged. He was amazing, but he was addicted to pills. We were doing drugs every day, and eventually we moved on to heroin. When I needed cash, I'd call my dad and tell him I broke a bottle of insulin. He would send me money, which I'd then use in drugs. 11 years ago, I got off the pills, the heroin. I've been clean ever since. During this time, my fiancé had relapsed. I had to keep him away from our children. I told him that he needed to get sober before he could move back home with us. He begged me to come home, but I wouldn't let him. The next day, I found out that he had overdosed and died.
My heart broke. I blame myself for his death. I feel like if I had let him move home, he would still be alive.
This necklace holds my late fiancé's ashes. I never take it off, and it means everything to me. I wanted to be emotionally numb. I didn't want to feel, so I turned to Xanax. I was caught taking too many Xanax, and I was put into a mental institution because of it, and my mother made me go. My dad stepped in to help me. He paid for everything we needed. His financial support is great, but I would much rather have my dad's emotional support and love. In order for me to get into a better place, I think my entire family needs help.
Before she comes out here, I want us to all be of one mind about this. People ask me sometimes if I think problems are as simple as I seem to make them out to be. And I think people misread me sometimes because I don't think problems are simple at all. I think problems are often complex, much like this one. I think we have a lot of factors going on here. I think she has a very difficult, incurable disease. You know, type 1 diabetes is something you manage, you can't cure, and if there's any brittle aspect to it, it's even difficult to manage if you are responsible. And it's difficult for a young person to deal with, as you say, it has social implications. Then you abandon her as a young girl because you have an affair and run off with this guy, but to her, you didn't leave your husband, you left your daughter.
I know.
And then you model really unstable mental emotional behavior with cutting and self-harm. And so she looks at that and says, well, you know, this is who I'm imprinting on, and I'm abandoned by her, and I'm seeing her do all these things. So her compass is swinging all around. So do I think this is a simple problem? No, I don't. But I think sometimes the solutions to some of these things are very simple. Beginning with, you just don't reward bad behavior. You start with the fact that if she's behaving badly, you don't pay her for that. You don't reward that. You don't say, okay, if you're going to be non-productive and irresponsible, I will write you a check for $7,000 every month. Here you go. Okay, you want to do that again? Here's another check. Okay, you want to do that again? Here's another check. And so behavior that's rewarded tends to repeat. Behavior that's not rewarded tends not to repeat. So she's being paid for bad behavior. And I'm just starting this by saying, very simply, one of the elements we have to do is stop paying her for behaving badly.
That stopped already. And if you're right, then her behavior should change accordingly. But it hasn't.
Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.